Welcome to Brand Me. I'm Preston Konrad, and on this show, we'll talk all things branding, from launching a product line to owning your side hustle. We'll talk to the movers, the shakers, the thought leaders. What do you say we finally stop focusing on brands X, Y, and Z and focus on Brand Me? Let's start the show. Hi, guys. I am so excited for today's episode. Today, we are sitting down with Matt and Enrique of the brand Fine and Dandy. Fine and Dandy was originally launched as a D2C men's haberdashery brand online, and then moved into becoming a retail store in New York City on 49th Street, which is now expanding into its second retail location with a new diffusion of their brand. And Matt and Enrique and we really get into discussions about how to protect your brand integrity as you grow and how to know when it's right to move into the next phase, how to know, for example, when to move from an online brand to an IRL brand, and how to protect different parts of your brand in that expansion. I think you'll find their conversation inspiring, personal, and there's a lot to learn from them about why being nice, kind, and approachable really creates a community and a sense of loyalty amongst your followers, your customers, and your brand in general. So I can't wait for you to hear Matt and Enrique. Let's start the show. Today's episode is brought to you by my brand, Preston Konrad Home. Living a stylish life does not have to be overly complicated or expensive. The magic of home decor is really made through the fun finishing touches, which quite too often come with big box middlemen and luxury brand price tags. With Preston Konrad Home, everybody can now inject major style into their space with minimal effort and no furniture shopping required with our new luxury home fragrance collection. Just in time for fall, you can choose from 5 stunning luxury candle scents, all made in America, or our new hand wash collection, both of which will instantly transport yourself to another world while transforming your space at the very same time. As a listener of today's show, you can take 10% off of your purchase of any single item on Preston Konrad Home using the offer code BRANDME. That's PrestonKonradHome.com, offer code BRANDME. All right, everybody, I am joined by Matt and Enrique of Fine and Dandy and Fine and Dandy Throwback. That's your newest edition. Guys, how's it going?
Hey, Preston, how are you?
Hello.
Neighbor, how are you?
Good. I'm good, neighbor. Yeah, for everybody listening, and we'll get into this in a second, but Matt and Enrique are the reason why I have my studio on West 49th Street in New York City, because they are located just down the block from me with their now 2 establishments, Fine and Dandy and Fine and Dandy Throwback. How's it going, guys?
It's great. It's been a whirlwind of a few weeks. As you just mentioned, we now have a second shop, which kind of came into being in less than 4 weeks. We decided to kind of pursue this additional space next to us. And it's kind of shocking how quickly we kind of turned it around and opened a second store in less than a month.
I surprised myself, because normally with merchandising, it takes me like forever. So
as a fellow creative, I get the struggle. You're always wanting to perfect it and spend more time than you should be doing certain things to make it perfect. Right. But everything you do is beautiful. I mean, your brand Fine and Dandy, you launched before you had a retail boutique, right? You guys opened essentially as a D2C brand. What was it, 2008?
2008. Yeah, yes. We both had other careers. I was managing Broadway theaters. Enrique was
in fashion retail. So,
and we were kind of looking for a little side sort of creative thing. And it was sort of the beginning heyday of hashtag menswear, the beginning of e-commerce. And we just had this idea, let's try something that's small that we can operate out of our apartment. And shockingly, it's sort of snowballed to what it is today.
So when you started in 2008, I know I own many of your ties, many of your pocket squares, many of those kind of Fine and Dandy owned items. But is that when you set out to launch the brand online with fineanddandyshop.com is the website, right? Fine and Dandy Shop?
Correct.
What was the assortment then like in 2008? Like when you launched, what was on there?
Completely different, right? I mean, first we weren't
the core items,
but we weren't actually making our own stuff then. Actually,
got it.
Initially, the idea was to curate a collection of other brands. So it was the ties and the bow ties and the pocket squares and the cufflinks and whatnot. But it wasn't until a little bit later that we started producing our own collections.
But I think the main thing that we wanted to create was sort of a place where we can offer something kind of accessible. I think at that time things were kind of getting expensive. Everything's made in the USA. Almost this elitist, hashtag menswear. During the pop-up flea was still happening at that time. So we wanted to have something a little bit different. Curate stuff that we love, makers that we love.
Accessible price
And I
point.
think we even started at one point, everything was under $50, which was crazy
Amazing.
to think back.
I mean, you guys have always had even to this day, have such a fair price point. And the world of haberdashery that you created, both with your own products and your careful eye that you've curated of other products, is always at such a fair price. And I know what you're saying about 2008 was kind of like J. Crew was really happening then. The menswear boom was really happening, but things were a bit more expensive. So you guys you found your niche from a brand point of view with a great price point and a nice tight edit. And when did that snowball into when you guys being like, you know what? We're going to make our own ties and everything. How did that come about? Because those are the products I love, I covet in my closet of yours.
I think it's a trade show and just meeting the right manufacturers. Right?
Yeah, right from almost the beginning at the trade shows, we started to meet some manufacturers, and there was a tie manufacturer that was private label that we said, okay, wait a second. We could do something under our own label. And we quickly went to the garment district and found a label maker to produce a label for us. And that kind of snowballed from, rather than private label, actually find a manufacturer that would produce our own collection from our own fabrics. It isn't an immediate light switch. There were so many progressions along the way of, and we felt like all of these there are these manufacturers that still exist, but there are all these, they're secretive. So
it's like a kind of a little family. Actually, the whole trade show experience was kind of
I was going to ask you about that, the trade show experience. So for people listening, I just went to a trade show, a private label kind of personal care, beauty, home trade show at the Javits Center. But I think a lot of people listening maybe are unfamiliar with that world. But it really, for people like us, it is Pandora's box, right? Essentially. So what is that experience like for you? And what kind of insight can you give on trade shows?
Well, and it's changed, right? I mean,
we were blind, right? When our first trade show, you can talk maybe.
The first one, I remember we went to, we had no idea what we were doing. I mean, we made up business cards. Our friend designed a business card for us, but we felt like we were kind of playing because here we are, we would go into a booth and, talk to the vendor, and they'd ask where our store was. And we said, well, we don't have a store yet. We're about to have a store, but it's an online store, not a brick and mortar store. And some of these, grizzly old vendors were like, what are you talking about? Like,
right.
Yeah, we were very young compared to all the attendees that we found. That it was sort of like, we felt a little kind of out of place.
We felt very out of place.
A lot of Garmentos, that kind of Garmento feel, those old school guys, that have been in the business a million years. And also, this is pre-DTC boom, right? This is pre-Warbies and Caspers and that whole bit. So you're probably they're like, online store, what are you doing in my booth?
Yeah.
And I mean, there were so many booths that I don't want to say they kicked us out of the booth, but basically they just walked away from us. And there are a few core vendors that, were happy to have the conversation with us. And we're kind of still with some of them today. And, that's really made the difference for sure.
So from landing your manufacturers, developing your own products, which, by the way, I imagine as two creatives with insane taste must have been like the craziest conversations, like between the two of you. Like, we have to stop making, we can't have 9 billion ties yet. We can do these 10, or we can do how did you work on keeping the brand tight? Because I know me, my business partner is always like, oh my God, stop. We're not making 10 more product lines right now. We do these, we're doing candles, and we're doing this. How did you keep it restrained, but kind of grow and develop your DNA at that time? I mean,
it's an ongoing thing. Every time we put together a collection, it's the same thing where I say, okay, you know what, this season, I think we should do 12 styles of ties. And we have all of our fabric swatches on index cards, and we kind of lay them out, and we do the first pass where we want to use this for ties, this for bow ties, this for pocket squares, and this for scarves. And after that first pass, there are 80 swatches for ties, and it's like, okay, let's whittle it down. We're not going to do eight, and it's
You got to just tire him out, like,
and
you know?
you
have to
he
overwhelm
knows
him.
that's
Late night. Okay, let's do this right now.
There are so many times when it's like rather than 12, it's 16 because I'm just tired and I want to go to bed, and
Totally.
I give up. But no, it's an ongoing thing of what are we putting in the collection that is the attention grabbing, really interesting piece? What are we putting in the collection that's commercial and we're going to sell out easily because it's a beautiful blue herringbone tie that, of course, every man wants a beautiful blue herringbone tie in their collection. So it's just kind of finding that balance. And, some seasons we do better. And sometimes, some seasons it's like, what, we did these 3 ties that are probably too similar. We should have saved this for next season. And so it's ongoing, and part of the fun is sort of learning along the way, to be honest.
I just want to add, like, there is an advantage that there is like 2 of us. I don't know how people that are doing this on their own.
I reel them in.
Do this. do this.
Rein them in. I rein them in.
It's kind of nice to bounce each other's ideas, and we have very different kind of viewpoints. So.
Do you kind of see yourself straddling the line of creative and commerce between the two of you? You found your little niche, like. Person X is worried more about the business side of things. Like you said, the commercial, like we know a pinstripe will sell. Let's do 3 extra pinstripes versus the creative of, well, I just want to create this dream and I want the brand to flourish. Like, how do you kind of navigate the creative commerce balance between the two of you?
I mean, we do have those types of roles, although it sometimes drives me crazy that people will like peg me as like basically the accountant, and I just sort of sit, and it's like, no, I do, I am a creative part of this business as well.
Yeah.
We share roles, but then we also definitely have. He's a little more creative. I'm a little more business.
I for sure can't do numbers and forms, so that's all.
Oh, me neither. You should see my my P&L sheet. It's like it's like handwritten, and it's now gotten into fancy Excel format. But I think what's awesome is that, because I remember I went into your store. I want to say it was like 2013, but I think the big, especially for what's happening right now, post-COVID, retail's having a moment again. Big brands like Glossier even are getting deep into bed with brick and mortar again, going from 2 locations to signing multiple leases all over the country. When did you know that it was time for Fine and Dandy to go from .com to 49th Street? And how the hell did that happen? Because it really is a world that you've created there. And I think you guys, as a New York small brand, were, to me, a frontier in that, of building a lifestyle out of the blue. When did that light bulb go off, and kind of how did you navigate that?
So, as you said earlier, we launched online in 2008. In 2010, we said, okay, we should do a pop-up shop. So there was this new funky bar on the Lower East Side called Blind Barber, and we said that we should try to figure out some way to do a pop-up shop with them. And one day we just kind of walked in the door and mentioned it to a barber, and he said, oh, well, the owner's actually at the bar. Why don't you go sit and talk to him? We walked in, we kind of gave our pitch.
Amazing guys,
cool guy. And he was like, yep, let's do it. And we said, oh my gosh, it's that easy. Okay. So we did our first pop-up shop at the Blind Barber, around the holidays of 2010. And immediately there was this light bulb that went off that after 2 years of selling online, actually having customers stand in front of you and having a conversation with them and seeing how they're interacting with the product, there was just nothing like that. That's you can't, as much as you try, you can't get that from online. And so we said, okay, we need to be doing as many pop-up shops as we possibly can. So we were doing pop-up shops at other stores. We did the Brooklyn Flea once a month, once every couple months. We did it as many times as we could have an in-person shopping experience. We did that. And then
Was the Chelsea
What
market
were sales like? Like, were you noticing, obviously not giving, were you noticing, oh, wow, in person is maybe outperforming online, or this style does better in front of a human, or maybe were there learnings right away?
Yeah.
Sales were huge. I mean,
we got our first wholesale order.
We got our first wholesale order, but I mean, selling in person, because it was right then, right there. People paid, they walked away, and sales were great in person. But it was we did the Chelsea Market pop-up shop
holiday,
the one on 10th, like the 10th Avenue side, the one that has like all the amazing makers there.
No, it was pre that. It was called Jingle.
It was like 2010,
2011.
11.
And
my God, 10 years.
That was such a cool experience, and we were there for a week. And that we were like, okay, it's time we start looking for a permanent space.
We kind of build it out, and people were like, this is great, but where's your real store, right? Those were the most common kind of questions. Like, people thought we actually exist somewhere, and we're like, kind of got us thinking like, oh, is this possible? Well,
I think also people probably thought, I mean, your branding, like your logo itself and the labeling, that's been the same since the beginning, right? That's been because I think it looks so polished. And this is a branding podcast. And I think you should obviously go check out Fine and Dandy on Instagram and look at what I'm talking about. But I think that's probably why they were asking, okay, cool, where's the store, right? There's a very Ralph Lauren sensibility to it. It's modern, it's chic. So did you field enough of those questions and you were like, I guess we should go look for real estate right now?
Yeah. I mean, definitely. I mean, it was sort of this, it definitely was an aha moment. And I remember shortly after that, we were sitting at a little ice cream shop on 47th between 10th and 11th. And across the street, there was an empty storefront. And
I looked at that storefront.
Okay,
the old glass one there. I've looked at it a million times. I always wanted to put something there because I used to live on that block.
It's still empty. It's still empty.
It's still empty.
But we started talking to the owner of the ice cream shop, and he said, "Yes, we looked at that, but then we settled on this place. You should talk to them." So that didn't work out. But then that started the process. Then we were like, "Okay, this is happening." Yeah. And we
Chelsea.
There were a couple other spaces that didn't quite work out. We actually were about to sign the lease on a space in Chelsea that kind of fell apart.
It was across from Barney's Co-op then,
which is.
And we were like,
I missed amazing. That one. That's like a mattress firm now. No, it's Room and Board now. I remember it's something furniture, but that's a great block too. Okay, you were living in Hell's Kitchen at the time, right?
We were, and we sort of loved. I've been in the neighborhood almost 20 years, and I've loved seeing how it's evolved, and I really. I loved the idea of opening our shop in the neighborhood. And I spent, the tricky thing is that these little spaces that we're in often aren't advertised. Mm-hmm. Often brokers don't have them. It's really just about knowing someone and, getting a referral. And I would walk like every block every day, just like looking for spaces. And I kept walking past this space and it looked empty. And I was determined to figure out what was going on here. And after walking past every single day for a month, I saw the super cleaning out front, and he introduced me to the landlord, and it just kind of, went
so good
from there. And it was just sort of this like stupid, weird determination, being a little obsessive about finding it. And it just kind of happened.
When you found the space, did you feel like there was an instant unlock because when I launched my brand, I felt like we constantly are changing the website and playing with the design. But I felt like as a retail guy at heart, I was like limited to the constraints of the four walls of the website, where I feel like I couldn't fully express who I am as a brand without having people touch it and see it. And did you feel like when you got the space, you're like, okay, now our brand can come to life? Like, did you feel like there was a big unlock there from that point of view?
Without a doubt. I mean, if anything, I feel like
we basically brought what we did put up in Chelsea Market. I mean, we still have the same bookcase. We have the same kind of styling, right?
Uh-huh. But I as much as we've worked very hard to improve our website over the years, I feel like we excel in the tangible brick and mortar more so, because it is more of a tangible brand. So without a doubt, walking in that door and being able to create in the brick and mortar, there was nothing like it.
What kind of, you guys opened up relatively shortly after finding the space. It's merchandised beautifully. You guys have to, if you're in New York City, you have to visit it. It looks like this men's haberdashery closet of your wildest dreams, just discovery points every 5 seconds. But what were some of the biggest challenges you felt going from D2C to IRL? Because I know a lot of people, I get messages all the time being like, oh, I've got a little X brand and I want to open up a shop in my hometown and I'm too nervous. We have full control online, blah, blah, blah. And there's obviously challenges. What were some of the, maybe from like maintaining the brand point of view or keeping the business on the tracks and not going crazy? What were some of the challenges you ran into when opening up the space? I mean, I know retail has its own challenges just from a store owner point of view that no one thinks about. Sure. But what kind of stuff did you run into?
I think maybe the main one for us was just like inventory management, right? Because, we have only a certain amount, maybe limited to 5 ties. And if we were to sell
quantity.
Oh, yeah. Say 5 quantity of one style. But, if we sell all of that for one wedding, we got to make sure right away we take it offline. Like,
right. Inventory management between the two has always been a challenge.
Yeah.
And for a long time, we kept 2 separate inventories. Mm-hmm. So just because we were so afraid of selling out, in shop and then selling it online and then having to tell a customer that we screwed up.
Yeah.
And it's happened every now and then over the years, but that's not a fun thing.
And also, for example, if we have like one left, where do we put it? Do we put it online or is it going to sell better here? Like, right. And then we found a system.
And in some categories, they sell better online. So it's better if we leave it online. In some categories, it's better in the brick and mortar. And in the pandemic, since the pandemic, we've been a little bit tighter with product as far as quantities. So whereas in most cases we keep separate inventories, it's tough when we sell out of something or we're down to one product very quickly. Right. So now I've come up with a system where if there's one left, I keep it online, but I have it on the floor, but I have a little tag on it so that I know. And it's just like these stupid little things that I'm trying to keep track of. It's a little bit tricky, but
we find a way.
You make it work.
Out, yeah.
Do you find that you share the same customer from a brand point of view from .com to your store, or do you find that they're kind of their own little worlds? Like, would someone say, "Hey, I bought this online and I came in to grab X, Y, Z," or do they kind of live in their own buckets?
It's all over. I feel like our customer base is so varied. Like, you would think it would be one thing that people want to dress up, but like
we have tons of people who walk through the door and say, "I've been buying for you for 12 years, and this is my first time in your shop."
Yeah,
we have tons of people who happen to be in New York City. They happen to walk past. They come in, they love it, and then they become regular online customers when they go back home to Idaho.
And you have like a 4-year-old that collects bow ties and brings in mommy.
The cutest.
Yeah. So it's both. I mean, I'm sure that we'll have tons of customers who will never actually meet in person, and they're loyal online customers. But it is great when we can have both.
Yeah. I mean, speaking of loyalty, I think that's something you guys have you've done a really nice job of I always use this phrase, humanizing the hardware. I mean, first of all, because you're there, right? So people can come in and they can meet you. You're the owners of the business. They can understand your passion for it. How do you protect, from a brand point of view, customer loyalty in the store? I mean, is that just really about like relationship building, or is it about new products? Is it about marketing emails? I mean, how do you, because I would say you have a pretty loyal fan base. I see what people post on Instagram. They're always tagging you. They're obsessed with you.
To be honest, we actually really don't think about it like that. I think it's just like if you come in every day, just do the best and be available to everybody. I mean, even that word, like I hate saying like, oh, just be genuine, be authentic, but it's like
be real,
we're not even thinking about it. I think it's just like really like being warm to every single person that comes in.
There's the book Hug Your Customers, and we read that years ago, and it's an amazing book if anybody hasn't read it and they work in customer service. But it really teaches you about doing the best to create customers that love your brand, and you are every day kind of hugging your customers.
I love that. I have to get that book.
Oh my gosh, Preston!
Yeah,
it's
I
such a
don't
good
have
book.
it. Well, you know me. I'll talk to a customer for 73 hours, and my team's like, "Okay, like we don't have enough space in here. Hello, they need to leave."
I mean, at the beginning, it was sort of like that. We got a lot of people talking for like hours, and it's sort of like introducing you to the neighborhood. Or
retail therapy is a real thing, and it's like haha retail therapy, but also like therapy,
real therapy.
And there are times when we feel a little bit like therapists, and we sort of at the end of the day we'll kind of talk about the interesting things that customers have told us that they acknowledge they've never told anybody else, and it's like, okay, I mean, how amazing that you feel that close to us, that you can tell us these intimate details about your life. But
I think that speaks volumes about your brand. I think it speaks volumes about the relationship that people have with you and your product. I think that's something really rare and amazing. I mean, so much in the fact that you guys were like, you know what, we're going to push it even further and open up another freaking store because you're unstoppable. I want to ask you about Fine and Dandy Throwback, because that's new to the street as of October 2021. And tell us about how the brand extended to yet another location, how it differentiates from the mother brand, the master father brand of Fine and Dandy, and what it's all about, because I feel like everyone that listens to this podcast is going to be obsessed.
I mean, we're still kind of figuring out that, how we're going to separate and, differentiate one.
So Fine and Dandy Throwback is more vintage clothing items.
Yep.
A little less dandy, a little more sort of contemporary.
Right.
It kind of came about a year ago in the pandemic when, Enrique was
pandemic baby for sure.
Definitely baby. Enrique was, I was sort of like out and about and trying to keep myself busy, and Enrique was sort of on Instagram, becoming part of this community of like vintage, like t-shirts and like streetwear and whatnot. And, you started doing these like auctions online. And
I mean, I think for me, it was just missing the customers. I'm a very social person. I've always been in retail, person-facing jobs. And I missed that. And, as much as I hated being in front of the camera, like right now, but, on Instagram, I love vintage t-shirts, and I'm just like, I want in on this because this is sort of a community I need during the pandemic. I was kind of going to the deep hole of like news, and like I needed something positive. So and I'm like, it brought me back to the 90s, the 80s, the stuff that I love, and people collecting and just selling. And I'm like, I want to do that. I want to try that out, and started doing a weekly auction, and kind of just.
Had you always had the handle, the Fine and Dandy Throwback Instagram handle? Or was that a pandemic baby too? And that was what?
Yeah. So I started it. Yes, I started it last year, September 2020.
Got it.
Pandemic baby.
Yeah, for sure. And actually, I remember that time because we were figuring out the name, right? I'm like, okay, I need something sort of like, it's still Fine and Dandy. Let's keep the Fine and Dandy, because in case we bring it to something else, there's that brand recognition. And then I wanted, and then of course you have to figure out what's taken or not taken, on Instagram, which is
the worst.
A lot of things.
I've had so many good ideas that are gone, and I'm like,
and they're just not being used. They're just someone else has claimed it.
I'm actually sitting on like 4 other names, and I'm like, why isn't this taken? I just need to take these names.
Oh my God, me too. To anyone listening, if you have an idea for anything, check the handle now and take it. I think I'm maxed out. I think you're only allowed 5. I have all 5.
Yes.
Amazing.
But yeah, throwbacks just kind of rank pretty cool for us, and also to how we want to differentiate it from like, the period dandy versus like
less dandy, a little more modern, fashiony.
Right.
And when we say t-shirts, these are like very sort of collectible, 70s, 80s, 90s t-shirts that it's sort of shocking, like seeing how they've, even besides you, this community has like sold these t-shirts for like hundreds and thousands of dollars,
and the prices have gone up even just like a few months ago. Like like $100.
Well, I think we're all longing for nostalgia right now after such a rough couple years, or last 2 years in COVID. We want things that make us feel happy.
I think that's what it was. We have military workwear, and it's just very kind of drab colorways, and like the pops, people want the bright colors and happy times. That's so it made sense. And I'm like, that's what I want right now.
This weekend I was talking with a college friend and telling her about Fine and Dandy throwback, and explaining what that was. And she said, "Oh, well, my son, sleeps in this like 80s Prince t-shirt." And I was like, my ears kind of perked up, and I was like,
"Can we have it?"
And I was like, what? Send a photo. Enrique saw the photo. He freaked out. He's like, "Yep, that's a $500 t-shirt that your son is sleeping in."
Yeah, and she's like, "Oh, but there's holes as like bleach." I'm like, even better. Like that's
cooler.
That's
what they want.
Like valued at $700. Like, yeah, I'll help you sell it.
I'm so your space, it's directly next door to Fine and Dandy. You're kind of similar to what we do at our Preston Konrad studio, is that you use it as a workspace a couple days for the week, but then weekends are when you're there and you've got the public in, and you have a little phrase for your open hours that you've mastered that I'm just obsessed with. What is it again?
It's so good. Weekdays, by appointment or by chance.
Or by chance. I just think, again, it's so you guys and it's so personal. Like, I think that's what, like, the ways that you've connected your brands together and they feel you. And that's so for people listening that are looking to extend a brand or maybe diffuse a part into a new brand. Like, I think there's little things like that you would never think about. Just the way you talk about your opening hours that feel like you guys and your business.
You haven't heard that expression by
Do you know our story where I got that? I stole it.
So
Provincetown, right?
So he saw it at an art gallery in Provincetown, but I feel like I've seen it like all my life. I feel like little antique ladies like use that expression. So I get a chuckle out of it because I feel like Enrique's a little antique lady now. But it's funny. I just thought people had heard that before.
I just remember that moment when I saw that. We were walking through Provincetown, and it's like maybe an art studio, like really cute, like artsy. And like, oh my God, that's like, I want that. I know my life is made when I can have a shop that says
by chance.
Open by chance.
Catch me by chance.
But it's like such a brandable little phrase that, like I think speaks volumes about a brand's personality or the brand's DNA or what their beliefs are and how casual and fun and inviting the environment is. So people can come in and shop you on the weekends in New York City. And will you continue to do your Instagram lives? Because I keep talking, we're actually chatting with someone from Instagram on the podcast. And, the future for social is commerce, really. And do you see yourself still selling on Instagram?
Yeah. I mean, when we opened back up, I couldn't do the weekly anymore. It was just so much, getting really busy here. And so I'm still doing it once a month. So my next one is actually going to be this coming Monday. I set a date every month. And I have, a few people slots for 45 minutes, vendors, and we talk to each other and we, take turns selling, and it's been fun. Yeah.
That's amazing. You guys, I'm so proud of you. I was like such a fan. I was such a fan of your brand. Guys, Matt and Enrique actually are the duo that convinced me to take my space on 49th Street because I was so passionate about what they were doing. I have a couple questions that I ask every guest I want to ask you guys. The first is, because I have many of these, but the first kind of brand memory, any brand memory that lives rent-free in your head that stuck with you, whether it's something that inspired your business or something that is nostalgic. But I think it's always nice to look at the brands that for some reason are sticking with us, no matter if they're food, beverage, clothes. Is there one that sticks in your brain that kind of lives there rent-free?
I mean, it's that store in Bleecker, right?
Which one?
Ralph Lauren, the tailoring shop at Bleecker. I mean, it's closed now.
Yeah.
But
it was
IRL
that.
No, it was a tailoring shop. I just remember when we first came across it, like, what is this thing? And we were taking so much photos. It was closed, but we were like, we need to take every photo. It was like a museum, I mean, Ralph Lauren is sort of like your gateway to vintage, right? I mean, for any dealer, any kind of retail person, there's a great Ralph Lauren University that we all came from. So,
but I think before we decided to launch a brand, I think we used to love going in, like on a day off, we would love just to walk around the city and go into funky shops and just we were so inspired by good retail.
Yeah.
And I think that's what kind of, got us excited about doing our own thing.
I think that's exactly what it was. And I think people always say, like, how do you know what to do? It's almost like we actually didn't have like a list of what we wanted to do. It's just like, if anything, it was sort of like, what don't we what didn't we like in a store, and that's what we wouldn't do in our own store.
Well, yeah, we also are very uninspired sometimes, and we'll leave a store and say, well, I didn't like that,
right? Like they should just close. Like they're you're kind of bothering them. You come in and they're like annoyed that you came in.
I hate that. It's being a chatty person myself. I hate that feeling when you're in a retail store and you don't feel welcome there.
Like, I'm sorry.
Any tips? Any tips for anyone looking to open up a physical space, whether it's a pop-up shop or a brand of their own, or even down, I don't know, a hair salon? A physical space is such a tricky thing to navigate. Any kind of like takeaways or big tips you would give?
I mean, definitely pop-up shops. I mean, that's without a doubt. I mean, having, as we discussed before, having those sort of interactions to be able to talk to customers live and in person and have them experience your brand, like that's a no-brainer. So
without investing into getting into a lease or anything, it's just a nice way to try things out, right?
And for our brand, everything has been very incremental. Mm-hmm. Our initial investment was not a lot of money. We didn't have an investor. We had a little bit of money in the bank. And along the way, we've made incremental changes, and maybe that's not right for some people. Maybe for some people, it's walk to Fifth Avenue and take out a huge lease and jump right in. But
we've spent $0. I mean, zero. Like
even the new space, we did it very sort of affordably and I think you have to do what's right for you, but we are big believers in incremental steps in building. It
gives you the control you can really feel in control that way, and it doesn't feel like it's spiraling out. You know where the money's going and where you can expand to next, and what your key areas of growth should be. And I think that's a really smart strategy. But to your point, everyone, some people when they want to launch a brand, go out, raise a couple $1 million, do it way XYZ. Totally cool too. But I think there's something really humanizing about your brand that's special, that's hard to find in other brands.
Thank you.
We're running out of time, but I want to ask a question that is an interesting little thing we're going to start doing on the podcast, which is, what branding question do you guys have for my next guest who you don't know who will be yet? Then I'm going to have it be a little connective thread throughout the show that what question could you ask the next guest about their brand or branding in general that you can find out the answer to on that episode.
What makes your brand different than anybody else? Today with, Shopify, all these e-commerce, anybody can have a brand. Mm-hmm. And they make it like, e-commerce like Shopify, they make it so easy.
Too easy.
Yeah. Seriously. And it's hard to stand out. So what have you done that's created how have you created your brand so that you are...
What makes you different?
What makes you different?
What makes you different?
I love that question. That's a really good one. I ask myself that all the time. Yeah. That's something that you should also as a business owner, a brander, be constantly asking yourself, because people are hungry. People are opening up Shopify stores left and right. People are working with great logo designers left and right. And it's good to stay aware of what's going on and what keeps you special.
For sure.
But Matt and Enrique, thank you so much. You guys, I'm so excited for Fine and Dandy Throwback. I'm going to come and shop and buy all my vintage tees.
Hooray.
And if you guys are in New York City or happen to come and visit, what's the address of the OG Flagship shop?
So they're the same address. They're in the same building. So it's 445 West 49th Street. So it's super easy.
445 West 49th Street. And you can find the guys on Instagram at Fine and Dandy, right? Fine and Dandy Shop.
Fine and Dandy Shop and Fine and Dandy Throwback.
Amazing. Well, congratulations on everything. Thank you for getting me as a neighbor on your block. It's invaluable.
Thank you, Preston.
And I'll talk to you soon.
Sounds great. Thanks, Preston.
Thanks, guys. For more on the show, you can find us on Instagram at Brand Me Podcast or at Preston Konrad. Be sure, of course, to rate, review, and subscribe and share on social. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll catch you next week.